The War Council chamber of the Galactic Coalition stretched across 300 meters of polished obsidian, its vaulted ceiling lost in artificial twilight. General K. Exthron of the Velkorian Empire stood at the central podium, his four arms gesturing in ritualistic patterns of frustration. Around him, holographic displays flickered with tactical simulations that had consumed 43 years of debate. The Chromath corridor remains impassable. Kexthron's translator rendered his chittering speech into flat, emotionless standard. Fleet Admiral Sorthine, your species has studied this problem for 2 generations. What progress? The crystalline being shifted, light refracting through her geometric body. The mathematics are immutable, General. 7 approaches, 7 failures. The gravitational eddies create a kill zone 12 light hours wide. No formation we've modeled survives passage. Commander Threx of the Borlean Confederacy slammed a tentacle against his console. Then we abandoned the Outer Rim colonies. 40 billion souls, but the math says they're already dead. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien languages. The Chromath corridor had been the Coalition's greatest strategic nightmare since the Void Swarm first appeared. The insectoid enemy had somehow learned to weaponize spatial distortions, turning the only viable supply route into a graveyard. Every simulation ended the same way, total fleet destruction within the corridor's chaotic gravity wells. Captain Elena Vasquez sat in the observer's gallery, her standard-issue coffee growing cold in her hands. She'd been assigned as Earth's military liaison 3 weeks ago, a courtesy position for humanity's recent admission to the Coalition. Nobody expected her to contribute. Humans were the newcomers, the primitives who'd only achieved faster-than-light travel 60 years ago. She'd spent the past hour watching alien generals, beings whose civilizations had mastered space travel when Earth was still forming, argue in circles. The same arguments, she'd noted, that filled the last decade of meeting transcripts she'd reviewed. Elena stood, her chair scraping against the floor. The sound cut through the debate like a gunshot. Kexthron's eye stalk swiveled toward her. Captain Vasquez, the gallery is for observation only. With respect, General, I think I can solve your problem. The chamber fell silent. Sorthine's crystalline form seemed to dim. Captain, our finest strategists have been treating this like a physics problem, Elena interrupted. It's not. It's a poker game. Threx's tentacles coiled in what his species considered amusement. A human game metaphor, how quaint. Captain, this is warfare on a stellar scale. Is it? Elena walked down to the floor, pulling up the tactical display with practiced ease. You've run 7,000 simulations. The Void Swarm knows this. They're not stupid. They've been watching you for 40 years, learning your patterns. She manipulated the hologram, highlighting a section. Every approach you've tried has been optimal. Perfect formations, maximum efficiency, textbook strategy. That's exactly what they expect. Kexthron's mandibles clicked skeptically. Optimal tactics exist because they maximize survival probability, Captain. Would you have us deliberately choose inferior strategies? Yes. Elena pulled up Earth's military history, displaying a grainy photograph from 1944. Operation Bodyguard. My ancestors convinced the Nazis they'd invade Calais when the real target was Normandy. They used fake armies, double agents, and deliberate leaks of false information. Deception is not foreign to us human, Sorthine said, her tone frosty. But you cannot deceive mathematics. The corridor's gravitational fields are observable reality. You're right, but you can deceive pattern recognition. Elena's fingers danced across the display. The swarm has learned to counter optimal approaches, so we do something no rational commander would do. We take the worst possible route. She highlighted a trajectory that made every alien in the room recoil. It cut through the corridor's most unstable regions. Regions where gravitational shear forces would tear conventional formations apart. That's suicide, Threx stated flatly. For a conventional fleet, yes. But what if we don't send a conventional fleet? Elena expanded the projection. You've been trying to thread formations through the corridor like a needle through cloth. Instead, we shatter the formation intentionally. Single ships, maximum dispersion, each following pseudo-random flight paths through the impossible zones. Kexthron's forearms moved in what Elena had learned was his species' equivalent of a headshake. The coordination required is impossible for centralized command. I know, that's why each ship operates independently, human style. We train pilots to improvise, to make split-second decisions based on intuition rather than optimal calculations. The chamber erupted again, this time in outrage. Intuition? Sorthine's voice carried an edge of crystalline shrillness. You would trust billions of lives to… Guesswork? Elena smiled. Educated guesswork. Humans have been doing it for millennia. We're not as smart as any of you. Our computers are slower, our simulations less detailed, our understanding of physics more primitive. So we learned to make decisions with incomplete information. We got good at it. She pulled up another display. I ran my own simulation last night. Dispersed fleet, randomized approach vectors, pilots authorized to deviate from flight plans based on real-time conditions. Casualties are high, 30% don't make it through, but 70% do. That's 70% of your fleet reaching the outer rim. How does that compare to your optimal strategies? The silence was deafening. Textron finally spoke. Our optimal strategies result in 100% casualties. We never considered accepting losses as a victory condition. Because you're used to finding perfect solutions, Elena said gently. Sometimes there isn't one. Sometimes you have to choose between bad options and pick the least bad. Humans are excellent at least bad. Threx's tentacles writhed in what Elena hoped was contemplation rather than anger. Your species would volunteer for this? Knowing 3 in 10 won't survive? General, my species once charged machine gun nests armed with bayonets because it was the only way to win. We're stubborn, reckless, and we don't know when to quit. In this case, that's exactly what you need. Admiral Sorthine was silent for a long moment, light refracting through her in complex patterns. Finally, she spoke. The mathematics. I cannot argue with the mathematics. A 30% survival rate exceeds 0%. Kekstrin's mandibles clicked rapidly. Laughter Elena had learned. 43 years. 43 years of debate and a human solves it before lunch. Elena glanced at her chronometer. Actually, General, I solved it before breakfast. I've been waiting for a polite moment to interrupt. The War Council stared at her. Then Threx began to laugh, a sound like water through pipes. Sorthine's crystalline form brightened. Even Kekstran's rigid posture relaxed. Humans, Kekstran said, something almost like respect in his translated voice. Perhaps we invited the right species to join us after all. Elena raised her cold coffee in salute. Sometimes you just need someone crazy enough to take the worst option and call it a plan. Welcome to human problem-solving, generals. 3 weeks later, the first dispersed fleet entered the Chromath corridor. Casualty rate 28%. The Outer Rim colonies received supplies for the first time in a year. The Void Swarm, confused by the illogical human tactics, retreated to regroup. By the time they finished recalculating, the war had already turned.